So let's see what we can do here to make this a little more.
Stranger and stranger the story gets.
Yeah, well, I don't
It
know.
was an AFI
Okay, here we are. Great.
women directors. So
Hi, guys. So it's Mark Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, live on our simulcast with the table. And hi, it's the table simulcast live with Mr. Sci-Fi. How is everyone? Yay! Great.
Good.
Great. Good to see everyone. Hello. Adam, you're in my upper left corner. If you'd like to jump in, you can.
I'm still. If we could go to someone else first.
Well, why don't we start with Thane? We never start with Thane. How about you, Thane?
Yeah.
and Thane even has his microphone turned on.
Yay!
Hasn't turned off his phone yet. So.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Well, I actually had a lunch outside the house today with a friend that I haven't seen in a year.
Wow.
Now that I'm fully vaccinated and past the 2 weeks and 3 days since the vaccination.
Great.
So I'm free to walk about and infect others, but should be good on my own. So it's it's freeing in many ways, but also fully recognize that there's a lot of people that are still waiting for their opportunity.
Yes.
At any rate, I did feel reasonably safe being out, although a little anxious just being around people.
I understand.
So, and been chipping away at a variety of things around here, mostly taxes. And yesterday, the IRS announced they were going to give us an extra month, which I hope I don't have to take, but it frees me up to get caught up on. I've got several deadlines coming up that I was trying to figure out how am I going to get them all done in the same time frame. So, and I had a couple of self tapes these days and a Zoom audition. First time I've had a Zoom audition, which was the best arrangement I've come across in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Self tapes take 5 to 6 hours to get out the door. The Zoom took close to 20 minutes. Driving across town and back takes 2 hours. So that worked really well for me. And we're waiting to hear where that goes. And my one-man show is coming together. I really think that sometime here in the next few months, I'm going to actually put it up. Memorization is the key. And I'm building props for someone else's little project, or building a few projects for a little project, and trying to get that done. In between the other things that keep me on the sane side of life.
Great.
Along with this event, which I look forward to as often as I can get here.
So anything else you need, Thane?
I'm probably going to need a little advice at some point on putting together my voiceover reel. I've been gathering up little bits and pieces. I have a serious narrative. I have a narrator. I have a more casual narrator. I have a guy answers questions piece. I have a southern accent. I have a really southern accent. Deep, southern accent. Texas accent. All those are bits and pieces from work I've done in the past, and pulling those together. And I think there's some comedy stuff somewhere. As you know, I've been trying to develop a sense of humor. So
Cool.
Once that happens.
Well, obviously Judith can be of help regarding the voiceover reel and all of that, and there'll be other people on the table who can advise as well. So anything else?
That's about it.
Okay.
Just keep working and
Yay! 3 cheers. So Adam, do we have a Mr. Sci-Fi question yet? Again, it's a simulcast between my Mr. Sci-Fi channel and the table meeting.
Yep. Yes, we have ever faithful Hayes 494 with another question.
Great.
Who says, since it's Lent, may I ask, what is your favorite biblical film? And if I may ask, will you consider adding a Catholic human character to Space Command like Sinclair in Babylon 5?
Interestingly enough, there is a Catholic in Space Command, and that's Bob Picardo. He's a Catholic playing a Muslim, interestingly enough, and he had to get dispensation from his priest to do it, to make sure it was okay. Fortunately, it was, of course. And but again, it has to be something where serves a story point that, in other words, just like, I'm Jewish and I'm happy to have Jewish characters in Space Command or Catholic characters or anybody, atheists too. It just has to kind of fit with what I want to do or with what makes sense, but I'm not averse to that at all. And, so but it's a good suggestion. And the more I get good suggestions, the more I tend to do things. So, great. So, let's see. Yes.
You're talking about good films to watch, and I had one.
Oh, yeah.
That I could suggest. So, Cecil B. DeMille's famous for the Ten Commandments and whatnot and everything else, and he's very religious and all that. And finally, after years, and I'm a big, big silent film fan, a kind of a cinephile, I had never seen King of Kings. I finally saw it, and it is an amazing film.
Is that the Jeffrey Hunter one?
This is the one he made in 1920.
Oh, the silent with H.B. Warner. Yeah.
H.B. Warner. DeMille is on fire with this film. He is doing this avant-garde kind of presentation. The cinematography is very strange and unusual. It's very, I strongly recommend it. I was very surprised that he outside the box like that, but he really brought it. And
there you go. Great. Well, and again, as I mentioned, with that one, H.B. Warner played Jesus. H.B. Warner, anyone who's seen It's a Wonderful Life, he's the druggist who almost poisons a kid, and our hero stops him in one timeline and fails to stop him in the other. H.B. Warner was also in Lost Horizon. He's great in that. But in King of Kings, you get to see him in a younger role, and he's always phenomenal. He's terrific. And now,
big matinee idol in the silent film.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why their ad line was "Jesus is a hunk." But my favorite biblical movie. I like Ben-Hur, the William Wyler Ben-Hur a lot, the one with Charlton Heston. I think that's really cool. I think several of the funny things about that, well, there's several great things. One great thing, which was satirized in Hail Caesar, the Coen brothers movie, is that you never see Jesus's face. You just see people reacting to the side of him, which is terrific. And the fun part is that a lot of people believe that Ben-Hur was a real biblical character, when in reality, he was a fictional character in the novel Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, that was written by Lew Wallace. And Lew Wallace was a Union general in the Civil War who actually was the judge heading up the tribunal in the Andersonville trials. So that's kind of interesting. What, you have fun? But Ben-Hur is terrific if you've never seen it. The silent one is really good too, but the Charlton Heston one is just terrific, and Stephen Boyd is great in it, and there's just a ton of wonderful set pieces in that film. So let's.
The chariot race was the largest set that was ever built at that time until the Intolerance set.
Yes, yeah, and you're talking about the original Ben-Hur. Well, they actually
it was incredible.
Well, they had a naval battle in the original silent Ben-Hur where they were using full-size Roman triremes, and they caught fire. And they were really burning, and the extras were really jumping off the boats trying to save their own lives. And that's crazy and amazing. And they obviously did not replicate that in the talkie version. So, David, I assume you want to go a little later, right? I assume, yeah. So, Dave Edison, do you want to take your turn at the mic?
Sure. Just a few things to mention. Hi,
Sure.
everyone. Hello, Mr. Sci-Fi. I just found that's the correct pronunciation. I kept saying Mr. Siffy. So hope everybody's well. I got a few shots here. I'm the editor of Space Command. I got a few shots just in from the VFX department, so I'm adding those to the cut. I'm going to render those and send them along to Mark for his approval or scorn, as the case may be.
Sure.
And other than that, we're just working on the project. We're just moving along. I'm the, let's see, what else about me? I'm the author of this book, the author and illustrator of The Man with the List, a picture book for grown-ups who can't believe in the unbelievable. Speaking of religious ethics, you can listen to it as a slightly animated version on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and search their platform for Man List Picture, it'll show up.
Did I post it on Mr. Sci-Fi? I thought I did.
Oh, you did. You did those.
So if you just go on Mr. Sci-Fi, you can find it. If you just type in, I'll be damned to hell.
Yes. And I hope to be. The sooner the better. Because this is just boring.
Yeah.
Except for Space Command.
Yeah.
What else have we got? We done recently? We got the animatic work in progress out. That's been getting some nice reviews.
Yes. We're working on the second hour, finishing that with the visual effects, and
and we're working on that, and we're looking forward to everybody being shot up with that vaccine joy juice and getting back into the studio. And putting some more of this epic on what they used to call film.
Yes. And for those who don't know, anytime you see any video with me in it, or anything I've made in recent times that has editing in it, Dave is the one who does that. Dave is the genius of the keyboard. He's the Liberace of the montage. And
I wish my brother George was here.
Yes, exactly. And except for Harpo and Chico, a dad. Yeah, that's Groucho Marx on his when he was elderly doing his concert album, his one-man show. So okay, anything else, Dave?
I think I'm good, and I hope to stay good.
Yay!
Take care. If I think of anything else, I'll let you know.
3 cheers. Very well done. Any Mr. Sci-Fi questions?
Yes, everyone is asking and I'm calling this the question of the night. Where is Elaine?
Elaine is she's over there working on her stuff. She's a pilot she's written. She's a writer on it, is about to go before the cameras, and she's been dealing with that today, and that's very exciting.
Hey,
you don't have to be here, Elaine.
Well, I was right over there. Yeah, I was just, and I was heating his dinner, which
you can bring a knife. No, but go ahead.
I can do a knife.
It's fine.
Let me get you a knife.
No.
Okay, hi.
Elaine, no reason to be productive.
Yeah, really, exactly.
Yes. You sure you don't want a knife?
I sure talk to people.
Okay, hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Yes, I was just over in yonder office. Yeah. After feeding him because he missed lunch somehow.
Yeah, really. Yes, go on. So, yes. Well, hello, everyone. Anything you want to say to the Mr. Sci-Fi audience?
Welcome.
Good to have you there.
Good to have you there. Good to have restaurants open.
Yeah. Do you want to go back to your
Fingers
typewriter?
crossed. No, it's okay.
No?
Right,
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take a break.
Yeah, well, you're welcome to stay or not. Whatever you must like. But so okay, great. So I guess Adam, you're next on my screen.
Yeah, I can take my turn now. Hi guys. I think I know everyone except maybe Justin's kind of newish. My name's Adam Sartain. I am an actor, a voice actor with over 75 different voices, accents, and impressions, and I'm an associate producer on Space Command. I'm kind of like wearing a shirt, so I'm going in and out here. I'm very subtly like hinting to Mark that I want to be in Space Command. I'm replacing Sarah Marafino's head. It's very subliminal advertising there.
It's good. It's good. You bet.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, really. Really.
We're hooking up stuff on Space Command. Lots going on, including keeping the website updated and preparing for an upcoming we're not keeping it a secret. We have a Kickstarter coming up.
Yeah, true.
Yes. So that's coming up next month. So be
So be afraid.
We're going to be talking a lot about that. And elsewhere, I've been approached for as an alternate for a church blog thingy to do voiceover. Haven't heard back from them yet, so I'm assuming I'm not needed for it,
Up
but
another.
little voiceovers stuff here and there always helps. Yeah, I think what else? Oh, and I had an audition that was super last minute. It was like a self-tape that needed to be done within an hour. And I was like 10 minutes late, so I got it in, and my agent liked it, so that's what counts.
That's great. That's great. So
yeah, that's it for me.
So nothing you need right now?
I'd like to book something. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk. Okay. Well, great. Yay, Adam. 3 cheers.
Yay.
So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yeah. Let's go to. We know where Elaine is.
Yay.
That was the most important question.
Yes. Judge Crater. Yeah.
So here we go. There's a question from Arkansas Big Dog Hensley.
Hi.
And he wants to know, how close is too close when doing a close-up?
If you hit the actor with the lens, I think that's too close, frankly. With
nose hairs,
with all the high def formats now, you can see often pores and things. Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's very funny, Dave. Very good. But the reality is, you don't want the close up to be distracting. So you don't want it to bring attention to itself, but you want it to be, effective. One thing that they've used close ups for many years, back in the golden age of cinema, was shooting low angle up at an actor who's short to make him seem tall. Kirk Douglas was actually very short. Alan Ladd, of course. Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson. And many fans wouldn't know that, particularly with some of the more recent names, and so that works very well. Another thing that's fascinating is that in a close shot of 2 actors, they can stand super close where they'll actually be out of focus to each other, but it looks natural in the frame. Whereas the normal distance people would stand apart from each other seems too far. So it's interesting how the vocabulary of cinema is different than real life in that way. So
also try and be aware of what your format is most likely to be. It's
yes.
multiple, but if we are back in theaters and you have a real close up, it's that kind of pushes you back. But if it's somebody will be watching it on a handheld device, then you can deal with closer close-ups.
Well, you have to basically compose your frame now for someone who might be watching it on like an 80-inch TV screen or their phone, and so you have to make sure that the image conveys. Interestingly enough, Wizard of Oz is unusually in close-ups, and it works really well on TV for that reason. Most movies of that era had far more wide shots because there was no television; they were on movie screens. But Wizard of Oz is an anomaly in that way, and it actually serves it very, very well. So there we go. Yes.
I can chime in with my film school definitions if you want.
I'd love to.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So the shot that I'm in right now, and Adam and a couple of others is considered a medium shot. It's the top of your head it's like a bust shot. Close up is the full head, and close up is smaller portions of the head, the eye. So then there's the wide shot, which usually includes the full head to feet, and then anything beyond that is like ridiculously wide. And there's the over the shoulder, which is over someone's shoulder connected to the shot, and then there's the close-ups from the side, which there are a couple of those. And the idea is that the wider shots establish things, and the medium shots are sort of a continual, constant distance, because you typically are that way with most people.
Yes.
And it's like punctuation.
Yeah.
We were just watching a Taxi Driver.
What? I'm sorry, David.
Looking at someone, you're using those shots to connect them emotionally, and if they're not over the shoulder, they're distance emotionally. And you can see these sometimes it's fascinating. They will have a character that's supposed to be connected to the other one and over the shoulder, and the other character is not supposed to be connected to them. They're detached from them emotionally. When they cut to that side, it's not over the shoulder. So you can some really masterful Danny DeVito is a director that I have observed do this. He's a master of this sort of thing. Of all people, it would be quoted, but here he is. Another one is Scorsese does this too. It's like there's a lot of directors that specialize in that sort of thing because of the psychological purpose.
What were you going to say, Elaine?
Oh, just that we're having a very good time watching Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
That is the extras.
Yeah.
Because they were talking about how much they were influenced by other directors who were emotionally connected to their view of life. And so how to capture things on the artists that work for you is one of the key ways to choose your shots.
Yes.
So say what works for you, what really gets to you.
There's a lot of things, yeah.
And so because of for them, the French New Wave was.
Yeah, we just watched Breathless by Jean-Luc Godard, which was one of the 3 films that kicked off the French New Wave in the 60s. It's an amazing film, and that was a huge inspiration on Taxi Driver in many ways. So, but my favorite shot of all time was when I was starting my career in animation. Back then we were writing on typewriters, and Michael Reeves was my collaborator on many things. And at one point we were both writing for a show called Space Stars, and the main character in that was Space Ghost, and the villain and Michael was writing a script called with a villain named Uglor, and Michael meant to type long shot Uglor because you had to call every shot in animation back then, and without knowing it, he accidentally typed dong shot Uglor and sent it off to Broadcast Standards and Practices, and they had a note on that one. So there you go. That's one for the ages. So, okay. So let's see. Christine, you're next on my screen.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So what we talk about what's the big dream, and my big dream still is to work on a project that either is a Warner Brothers project or becomes a Warner Brothers project. And what I find humorous about that is that at the big studios, the first thing I'm going to end up doing is a Disney project, just for a day. And so that's kind of, heading towards my big dream, in my opinion.
Great.
And then I was talking to a fellow table member, and I said, just start saying yes to unusual things. And I thought, okay, I don't know what unusual things are, but so because of that, then I talked to a person who talked to a person, and so then they're like, well, get your COVID certification, and then we're going to have an event, which is not happening until later in 2021, but it's like a big event, and then they would put me on that project with them. But it's not a film, it's an event. And I'm like, okay. And then somebody else said, oh, I think you'd be good as an extra in this. And so I read the requirements, and it just needed you to take a selfie. And they specifically said, if you send us a headshot, we won't consider you. And I'm like, I don't have a headshot. I have a phone. I can do a selfie. So that's something else that's coming down the pipe as well. And I'm like, okay, these are things that I normally would not be saying yes to. These are weird things, but they show movement within the entertainment industry.
Yes.
That things are opening up, that that things are continuing, which is really exciting. And I know the United States government never stopped doing something.
Yes. That's great. So anything else? Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just posted in the chat my LinkedIn account as well. And then I don't really have an ask. I just have a share. And I miss everyone and look forward to the time we can all be at Marie Callender's or someplace else.
Yeah.
All together.
That'll be great. Well, 3 cheers.
Congratulations on the adventure.
Yes, congratulations on the adventure. So do we have another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes, and I'm very jealous that you're working with Disney. That's one of the companies I want to work for.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
so our next question is from Todd Chamberlain.
Hi, Todd. Good to hear your name.
He says, hello. I know that Alien and Aliens is among your and my favorite sci-fi movies.
Yes.
Sadly, Yaphet Kotto passed away
Yeah.
on Monday.
Yes.
I wonder if you have any anecdotes of him.
I didn't. I saw him at a convention not long ago signing photos, but I really didn't know him. But of course, Veronica Cartwright has just joined the cast of Sweet Haven, and that's terrific. I mean, that's why I'm wearing my Veronica Cartwright shirt tonight. And and she's great. I've wanted to work with her forever. She's in The Birds. She's in Alien. She's in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the Donald Sutherland one, and so she's terrific and wonderful. And Yaphet Kotto, the closest I came to writing for him was he played the police chief in the TV show Homicide, and I got to know Tom Fontana, who was the showrunner. We actually did a pilot with Tom that we wrote and executive produced, and I flew to Baltimore at one point and watched them shoot that show, and it was he was very good on that show. I mean, it's funny because he and Harry Dean Stanton play sort of the jerks in Alien. They play the guys who are always the blue collar guys who are always complaining about their bonuses, but they definitely have a chemistry together, the two of them. And but Yaphet Kotto, I think one of my favorite things Yaphet Kotto ever did is Michael Moore had a TV show some years ago, and to prove that black people have a harder time getting a cab than white people, in New York, in this case, he had Yaphet Kotto hailing a cab, holding a sign saying Yaphet Kotto, movie and TV star, and they were just driving by him, not picking him up. And there was a white guy who was actually a convicted murderer and who had gotten out of jail after like 20 years, and they were just picking that guy up because he was white. And so it was,
Did the white guy have a sign, convicted murderer?
No, but it was like, even if he has, but they had a lit arrow with, they had a lighted sign.
Bigger and bigger.
Yes, it got bigger and bigger.
He had
the
a
sign.
baby, and then it lit sign. Yeah, it just got bigger and bigger.
Yeah, he was holding a baby at one point. Yeah, it was a good gag, but he was.
But he never got picked up.
No, never. But it was great. It was great.
Good thing times have changed.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, now he'd be run over. But it's like, Jesus. Times have certainly gotten better. So, David Bartlett, did you want to take your turn now, or do you want to wait until there's more of a minion?
Sure.
Okay, great. Go for it.
I'm David Bartlett. I am a filmmaker, a teacher, and a human rights activist, and producer of Space Command.
Yay!
Lots of things these days. And one thing that was a lot of fun was we put together this Sweet Haven table reading, which is part of the Showrunners Network. We had a lot of great people on there, some of which were fun, particularly for me, because Veronica Cartwright was the co-star in her first movie of the first movie I ever saw in a cinema. And this will be a little telling to some of you. I was 5 years old, and the movie was The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock. So that had quite an effect on me. So I got to tell her that, and that was cool. And I remember being in a nursing home where my grandmother was when I was about 10, and I was watching TV, and there was a pilot for a new sci-fi TV show, and I couldn't stop watching. And it was called Lost in Space. So now I've worked with Bill Mooney, and I also just worked with Marta, who played Judy on Lost in Space.
Marta Kristen.
Monday too.
Kristen. Great.
And it was so nice and so good, and it was just lots of fun. So anyway, look forward to Sweet Haven coming your way soon.
Yay.
So, see, my background, I have made my first film when I was 10. I moved to LA in 1980 and started working right away on some very big films as an intern, and I worked with Robert Wise, who did the sound of music on West Side Story, and he was the editor of Citizen Kane.
My goodness.
And I did some independent low-budget films for a while, and I was a set carpenter with production designer James Cameron, whose name was Jim at the time, at New World Studios. And I started doing editing and sound design, and I started working at the studios doing that, and I worked on Pulp Fiction and Speed and Total Recall and Predator 2 and a bunch of other movies, Point Break, which was a lot of fun. I have significant contributions to certain aspects of each of those films I can share sometime. I usually tell a Hollywood story no one's heard before, and it's getting more challenging, but I can tell you the story. There's a topic that's going around currently about people that don't treat others as nicely as they should, and they start to try to extort people on films or take advantage of them. So I was on a film once, and the significant thing about the film at the time was I was a camera assistant with a cinematographer, and he was doing his first film in the US. He was British, and the film was called Neon Maniacs. and it was a very bad teen zombie movie shot in Griffith Park. And that cinematographer turned out to be Oliver Wood, who has now shot all the Jason Bourne movies and U-572 and Die Hard 2 and a lot of incredible, great movies. He's an amazing cinematographer now. And so it was cool for me to work with him on his first film in LA. But the story is, they had hired us all, and they put us on a 2-week payroll. You could work on a Monday, and you would get paid not the next Monday or even one after. You get paid Thursday after. So it was actually 2 weeks and 4 days before you got paid. And they said, well, you know what, guys, we're sorry, but we're having a little trouble with our finances. Don't worry, it's going to be fine. I want you to go ahead and finish the shoot if you can. And so my friend we borrowed a certain piece of camera equipment, a box of camera lenses worth about $20,000, and left and said, we want to get our check. So the next day, miraculously, our check came, and we met the guy at the bank. The teller was very nervous at first and brought the manager over, and finally there was an argument and discussion. We came over and got our checks, and he said, so the guys that, we had to hire some new guys, you know that, right? Oh, yeah, sure, we understand. And they said, there's some kind of box or something that was missing off the truck. You can't shoot without lenses. So it wasn't that casual. We're like, oh, well, we'll check, we'll see. So we took the lenses back to the set. We warned everybody what happened, including the crew, who agreed to keep working without getting paid, and we left.
Mm-hmm.
They finished that week. They didn't get the people paid, and they shut down the film. And 6 months later, they started up again. They did the same thing, 3 more weeks, and they finished the film without paying anyone.
Wow.
So
The moral.
I'm not saying you should go to those extremes, but on the other hand, you have to do what you have to do.
Yes.
So surviving in Hollywood can be an interesting challenge.
Yes.
The record, I did find out later, those people finally ultimately did get paid months later. So it wasn't a completely nefarious scenario, but it was exciting for me. So that's my Hollywood story for this week.
Yes.
So now, what do we do next? We do Space Command. So Space Command, yes, I am in charge of, among other things, studio construction and building sets. So we're doing some of that now. We're doing some painting now. We're going to be doing some testing here shortly. The volunteer here and there for that would be great. We're going to test fog. We're going to do a small test of fog. Try different types of fog in different conditions with the sets that we've been building. And then later we're going to do a much larger, extensive test with a large studio with many of the set pieces and the cinematographer from the film Mossy. But we're going to do a small one in the meantime. So if anyone's interested in helping out with that, we might be doing that in 2 or 3 weeks here. And always coming down to help build sets is fun, and it's definitely helpful to us. And you get to get construction foam all over your clothes, which is exciting. But we also have these white sort of Teletubby style paint suits that you can wear, so you don't get the foam on yourself. Anyway, there's other things you can do at the studio besides that. That is kind of it for Space Command, I guess. So then the third thing I do is the table email. If you want to be on the table email and you're not, you can email me. I'll put email in the chat here on the side, and then let me know. You have to have your first name and your last name in an email that's not Yahoo. It can be anything else but Yahoo. And then I'll get you set up to be on the table email. If you're not on the table email now, and you should be, or you're having troubles, let me know, and I'll take care of that. So my email is davefilms, DAVEFILMS @hotmail.com. And again, I'll put it in the chat here. And all of you and Mr. Sci-Fi are welcome to join the table too. It's a special offer because we're not at Marie Callender's, and you have a chance to join now if you so desire. So you also can email me at that address. And I think that's it.
Great. Cheers. Yay. And actually, David, your story about leveraging getting paid reminded me of a story that Ron Perlman told me. And he was down in Mexico shooting Kronos for Guillermo del Toro. It was Guillermo's first film. And at one point, Guillermo came to him and said, I can't pay you right now, but I promise you, you will be paid. And so Ron Perlman immediately walked to the nearest payphone, and he called his agent in LA and said, what should I do? And the agent said, get on the next plane and fly home. And Ron Perlman knew in that moment that if he left, the movie would collapse. And if he stayed, they could finish filming. And so he decided to stay, and he trusted Guillermo, and Guillermo ultimately did pay him. And that began a career and a relationship between the two of them that lasted for many years. And it was a great sign of trust on his part. and Guillermo was, of course, hugely grateful to him, and so that was, that's sort of the flip side of that story. So, okay, cool. So, do we have another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes, we've got a question from Bob Rich.
Yay! Hi, Bob.
He says, how can we learn about the inner workings and the partnerships of great directors and their music composers in film and TV, and the methods they used while collaborating to make music scores?
Well, definitely you can, many of the top composers, there are books on them, like Bernard Herrmann, and of course he had a great relationship with with Hitchcock, but often the real challenge is getting the real story, because often if it was extremely stormy, people don't want to talk publicly about it, but you can definitely read biographies of those people, like Leonard Bernstein, who wrote music for On the Waterfront and West Side Story. And but it's you just kind of nose around a little bit, and you can find those things. There's also some documentaries on some of the great composers of film, so just kind of check it out and see. There are many different relationships between directors and composers, but often when they find the composer that really is on their wavelength, like Danny Elfman, for instance, with Tim Burton, they'll use them for multiple films. But it varies enormously from director to director and composer to composer, and so it's almost like dating in that way, where it has to be a good match between the two, and some directors are very, very much into micromanaging the score, and others trust their composers, and if they have a note, they'll give it, but they essentially want to see what the composer is going to come up with. But Hitchcock and Bernard Herrmann, it was a very interesting, and it was a brilliant collaboration. Of course, Vertigo, and Psycho and The Birds and so forth. But on the last film that they were supposed to do together, I think it was Topaz, Hitchcock said to him, "The one thing I don't want in this score is brass, horns." And so Bernard Herrmann delivered him a score that was entirely horns. and Hitchcock fired him and got somebody else, and that was the end of their working together. So, but Bernard Herrmann's last score was Taxi Driver, which is spectacular, and he died the day after he recorded that score for Scorsese. So, really interesting. So, okay, cool. So let's see. I guess Justin, you're next on my screen, so go for it.
Hey, what should I be answering specifically? Just is it asking questions?
Well, yeah,
or?
it's just who are you? What are you up to? What do you need? I mean, yeah, basically as relates to your, industry profile.
Is there
and
anything
career
you'd like
or
to
whatever?
offer to the table?
Or yeah, anything? Yeah, go for it.
Cool. My name is Justin Moran. I don't have any cool Hollywood stories. I moved here about 5 years ago.
Cool.
By way of New York. I wrote musicals for Broadway.
Uh-huh.
3 very minor successes.
Great.
I emphasize the word minor.
Yeah. Well, a minor success is better than a major failure.
That's definitely true. That is definitely true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started writing pilots. I'd love to break into a writer's room somewhere.
Sure.
Genre is like sci-fi and horror are the things that I love the most.
Cool.
And I'm fairly clueless about the industry at large.
Yes.
I moved here. It was nice. For a while, did some of the contests and the film festivals, and met some cool people that way. And then the city shut down, and
yes.
I've been, living this life ever since. Yeah. So I guess if you.
Oh, sure. No, go ahead, please finish the thought.
I was going to say, if I have any question, if you could talk a little bit about how you got, with the first room that you were in, or
sure.
Wisdom on that front.
Yeah, but one thing I can suggest a number of things for you. Obviously, the networks have their television writing fellowships, and they hire most of their entry-level writers from the winners of those fellowships. So I would definitely enter all of those each year. Most of them are free to enter. CBS, NBC, ABC, etc. Beyond that, you might want to start a podcast where you interview showrunners, because again, that will allow you to spread your net widely. Also, when the pandemic's over, going to Writers Guild events is a very good idea, and going to science fiction conventions is a very good idea, because that's where you'll meet the showrunners, you know. That's some of it. In terms of me, where to start? Well, you know, right out of college, I started writing the Twilight Zone Companion, and all the showrunners, particularly in drama, their idol is Rod Serling. So all of them had read that book. The book sold extremely well, and it's still selling extremely well after all these years. I started writing that book when I was 21. By the time I was 23, I was writing for television, 22 or 23, and I started in animation and wrote for several years in animation very successfully, and then jumped over to live action with a show called Captain Power that I developed for television. There was a live action science fiction kid show, but we took the idea of kid out of it and just made it what we wanted it to be. And the first show I was on staff on was Friday the 13th, the series. And I was my entry level was story editor. I was never a staff writer because I went into pitch. That's back when you could have freelancers pitching every day. And at one point I was talking to the executive story editor, Bill Taub, and we were talking about a story point. And I said, well, there's a number of ways you could do it. You could do it this way or that way or that way or that way. And they were all ways that worked. And he said, I hired you because I needed those fingers. He needed someone who could very, very, very quickly come up with alternative approaches to a story, all of which would work. And so I wrote a number of episodes on that show and took a lot of pitches and did a lot of rewrites on other people's scripts. And then the Writers Guild strike hit, and that was that. But that's how I broke in. And then I rose up from story editor to a producer and finally executive producer on various shows, including my own.
But it is based on relationship. He'd already done on his own the Twilight Zone Companion because he'd met a couple of the people, and then he just was fearless, and he continued. That could have not sold, but he spent like a long time getting the evidence. After that, someone he'd met in school who was a few years older than he was let him come aboard animation
as a collaborator on a script, just to see, you know. And then go ahead.
And then and so he wrote a few with his friend
with Michael Reeves,
until his friend said, I feel guilty because you're writing the whole thing.
He didn't, well, but more than that, I was clear. It was clear after one or two that I could write them on my own. So the first script we wrote together was Space Stars, as I mentioned, and then I wrote for Smurfs just as it was starting up, and He-Man and Master and Super Friends and Real Ghostbusters and on and on.
So he was like always very assertive. Part of it is you don't go where Hollywood wants you to go. You go where you choose to go. Because when he was doing really well in animation, making a lot of the way animation is not big money, but it's money.
Yeah.
He then started writing sample, live action.
Yeah, live action features.
And that was hard because he was writing all day animation, and then at night he'd be writing the others. So again, part of it is just creating evidence, and keeping in the flow of people whose work you like.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of relationship and just endless evidence.
Yeah, and the other way of doing it is if you hit big with a novel or hit big with a graphic novel, that sometimes can help too. You can get a pilot deal or whatever. There's a number of ways to break in. Now what I'm doing is I'm just making my own content. I have my own studio. I'm making my own content. My fans are sending me money. It's nice, But the one thing I'll say is I always brought my A game. It didn't matter if it was Smurfs or if it was Star Trek: The Next Generation. I always brought my A game. My friend Frank Spotnitz, who created Man on the High Castle, said, good enough is never good enough. And I agree with that. And, But
if somebody says, hey, just write a great script, get an agent, blah, 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 forget about that.
No.
Forget about that. That's not.
No. Well, people ask me how I broke in. And I say it's more like I was a burglar working in a neighborhood. I broke in and then broke in and then broke in. It's like it's an ongoing process, even today, even now, after all these years. But my goal has always been to create superlative material, something that would move an audience, that would change an audience, and like Star Trek changed me, or like Twilight Zone changed me. And I know that television has a great capacity to inspire and to show people possibility. And that I take that responsibility very seriously. So I'm not just some guy looking for a gig so I can make a living. It's nice to be able to do that, but that's not why I do it at all. I do it because I love working in a medium that reaches millions of people and lasts forever. I mean, shows I wrote when I was in my early 20s are still being watched and enjoyed, which is very, very fulfilling emotionally.
And start looking for agents are very hard because they have to please the agency.
Mhm.
They want you to be making a lot of money before
Yeah.
they take you. But managers, if you look toward young up and coming people who get managers,
Sure.
where you love the work that they're backing. So
Mhm.
young, energetic managers with people whose work you like.
Yeah.
That's you kind of keep your eye out for that. You know, for someone who suits your just aesthetic.
But the great thing now that's different from when I broke in is that now you can make your own content and put it on the internet, and it can be seen by millions of people. And that's a great way to reach people with your content. For instance, you know, what's her name? The one who did Insecure. You know, she was doing a web series, and HBO saw it and came to her and said, "We want you to create a show with yourself as the main character." And you know, that was yeah. Well, that's because she was on the internet. You know, so there's a yeah. But I mean, the main thing is it's that balance between the work has to be of really superlative quality. It has to have a quality of voice. I mean, that's the big part. There has to be, you know, many scripts, because I've read a lot of spec scripts, a lot of samples, particularly episodic samples. And like the problem with them is, back in the day, you had to write episodic samples of shows that were on the air and that were hits. And you read all these scripts by these people, and it was obvious they'd studied the show, they had nailed the structure, they had nailed the character voice, but they had nothing to say. And so it was like, okay, this works as a script, but who's the person behind it? What do they believe in? What do they think? What makes them individuals? And you really want to have a voice as a writer, and that doesn't mean you violate character voice, because you can't. If you're writing for Captain Kirk, it's got to sound like Captain Kirk, you know, or whatever. But the more one like Harlon Ellison had a very strong writer's voice, or Ray Bradbury, you know, you can the real thing. Well, Ray used to say to me, you know, look inward, don't look outward, look inward. And what he meant was, look at what you love, look at what you hate, look at what you're afraid of. Really find the things you're passionate about and write about those. And you know, there's no quality of authenticity that good writing has, and that's what you want to strive for. So that's some of it. So anything else?
No, that was a lot to digest. That's
Okay.
great.
Yeah, well, you know, you asked. So, but yeah, and the other thing is be unstoppable, because a lot of people, the first sign of rejection, they fold, and your job is to not stop until you get where you need to go. So that's a big one. So okay, well, 3 cheers, yay, Justin. So another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam.
Yes, we have a question from Mark Lungo,
Hi, Mark.
who asks, we've heard about actors being exposed to sexual harassers, domestic abusers, etc.
Yes.
What would you do if an actor on one of your projects was guilty of such Me Too behavior?
It's sort of case by case. You know, obviously it's inappropriate and wrong. I have never had that problem. I've never had an actor act inappropriately. But for instance, when I was doing the Twilight Zone companion, when I was writing it, when I was a young, attractive young Blade in my early 20s, I went to a director's house to interview him about his work on Twilight Zone. And while we were watching his episode, he put his hand on my knee. And it was like, so what I simply did was I just kind of froze and didn't respond. And after a few moments, he took his hand off my knee and we went on with, you know, the interview. And, you know, so I didn't make, in that case, I just got on with what I was there to do. And I sent a very clear message that I was not particularly interested in the buffet he was offering, you know, so, you know.
But it is important to know that you are, if you're running the set, you're legally responsible.
Well, if you're the boss, you have to step in. You have to take it very, very seriously, because your entire team represents you. And if someone's doing something inappropriate, you need to really come down hard. And, you know, and that's, you know, that's very important. I believe that very strongly. So, okay, let's see who.
Honestly, I couldn't even think of an example, because everyone that's worked on your projects is like the nicest people.
Yes.
Yeah, we've been really lucky.
Well, it isn't luck. It's we choose good people. We choose nice people. No one's walking around, oh, I forgot to put on my pants or anything, so, I mean, and some of the actors are elderly enough where they probably could get away with that, but, as a early dementia excuse, but no, it's we choose people. We Elaine and I strongly subscribe to the life's too short to work with someone who's a major pain in the ass, and that served us extremely well in terms of picking our collaborators.
Yeah, we once offered a very major DP, and then we were warned, oh, but he is a yeller.
Yeah, he's a screamer.
He's a screamer.
Yeah.
And I said, we have children on the set. Forget about it.
No. Right, exactly. And but it's also incumbent upon you to set an example and be kind and compassionate and present and listen. Like if your actors have not necessarily a harassment complaint, but if they have a concern about a line or a concern about a scene, like for instance, when I wrote Mira Furlan, her character, it was a question regarding orientation, and I made sure she was comfortable with that before writing it. And again, so you really want to make sure that your actors are comfortable with what you're asking them to do, and if they feel discomfort, you treat it very seriously, and you just don't just say, do what I told you to do, but also you don't back off it. You find something that works for everyone concerned. It's because you don't want to homogenize your work to a point that it's meaningless. You have to be very careful of that. So next on my screen is Kushik, so go for it.
Hi everyone, good to see you all.
Yeah.
My name is Kaushik and I'm a comedy writer, actor, and a filmmaker. I'm at work right now, so you'll see other people moving around. And that's the reason I had not been able to come, because generally this time I still at work. By the time I reach home, it's 7 o'clock or something. Today I thought, no, I got to attend the meeting, say hi to everybody.
Well, that's great.
I recently finished my first pilot writing class and finished the first draft of a multi-cam sitcom pilot. And now I'm in a second class at Los Angeles City College, same TV pilot writing class, and I'm writing my writing a single cam pilot. Taking the suggestion from Mark. So
Great.
Hopefully I will have the draft ready by the summer, and then we'll see what I can do with those 2 drafts. Maybe send it out to agents and stuff and producers and see.
Great.
Recently I applied for a renewal of my acting visa, and David helped me a lot on that. So I really want to thank David on that, because he did some real type of letters and stuff that he provided. It would be very, very helpful to me for the immigration purposes.
Great.
Okay, and what else? Just happy to be here.
Great.
When the things for Base Command starts, hopefully they can try and get a cool job. Makes me feel good to be on a set and also learn the behind the camera stuff.
Great. Sounds great.
Yeah, that's the advantage of having an ongoing company, because we can help talented artists from overseas, get contracts of sufficient length that help them stay.
Great. So anything else, Kaushik?
That's all for now.
Yay! So cheers. So do we have another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes, our next question is from El Johnorino,
Hi.
and he says, have you ever done a lot of work on a story or script only to be told it's already been done?
No.
If so, what did you do with it?
No.
How do you look out for this before you do too much work?
I've never had that problem, because I strive to write things that are very specific to my interests and my voice. And again, I don't worry too much about that, because, for instance, like there was that year that they had two asteroid impact movies. One was Deep Impact that Spielberg did, and the other was Armageddon. Both of which were like sort of didn't weren't very good. But now we have a movie called Greenland that's much better than either of those. So it's the same premise: an asteroid hits the Earth. My favorite example of this, which I quote in the book I'm writing, Greenlighting Yourself, is I talk about tone and how the same story can have very different tone. And the example I give is, here's the storyline. A group of young, attractive people are being raised at some strange compound where they're kept kind of very naive and very youthful, childlike, and ultimately we discover that they are clones of wealthy people who are being raised to a point where they then harvest their organs to save the lives of the original people who paid the money. Now, that was originally done as a movie called The Clonus Horror that starred Peter Graves, and it was kind of like a cheesy science fiction movie in the 70s. It was also done as a movie, a high-end movie called The Island, starring Ewan McGregor and I believe Scarlett Johansson, and that was sort of a big action science fiction film. And then it was also done as a moody intellectual film called Never Let Me Go, which was based on the novel by Casio, whatever his name is, who wrote Remains of the Day and won the Nobel Prize. Same plot, three totally different tones. And so again, so that's never something that I'm concerned with at all, So there you go. So Carol, you're next on my screen.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Two things that you said. Bernard Herrmann. Herrmann is my very favorite screen composer.
Yes.
Without it. There's good people, and then there's Bernard Herrmann.
Yes.
Oh my God. And also, I was just reminded, in terms of screamers, I did an Olsen carpet and rug commercial quite a few years ago, and the director was screaming and screaming and screaming at me, and I'm like a nice guy on the set. I take direction, and why is he yelling at me? My candelabra was not lit.
Huh.
And I had no idea that's what he wanted. Like a freaking candelabra. I'm not supposed to light it anyway. I'm the actor, I'm not this.
Right.
So I just remember he didn't shut up. So I was thinking of that. It was not fun. It was not fun. I was in this very special table read on Sunday.
Yay.
Very special. And,
yes.
Dave Bartlett, thank you for your very kind compliments. They were blush worthy. Thank you. I told my brother about it. My brother said, "Who was in it?" He's so funny. And I said, "Well, James Hong." He said, "James Hong, he tortures Americans." And then Veronica Cartwright, she died in Alien. He said, "I don't want you hanging out with a strange group anymore."
That's funny. That's
it's
funny.
Really funny. It was really cute. So it filled me up a lot. It was really what a fun, wow, what a really fun morning.
Yeah.
Thank you. And how soon in a screenplay should you hit your audience over the head with the protagonist's primary motivation? Early.
Yeah, one of the rules of thumb is usually, like most people take too long to get to the point of something. And you want the audience, first of all, to know who the main character is, because I've seen movies where it's like a whole bunch of characters are introduced and you don't know who's who or why you should pay attention to them. And yeah, I mean, you don't want to be so fast that people don't know what the hell's going on, but you do want to be very, very clear as soon as you can, because, or at least if not their objective, certainly their outlook that colors who they are and why they will end up doing what they do. So,
I mean, if you see some of the best movies, and if the quest is to end loneliness or to be somebody, to touch their dad, generally you will see that longing right up front. They may think, well, I want to earn money, but it's not the presenting problem. It's like underneath what's the journey? What do you really want these guys to get?
Now there's some spectacular exceptions to that. The most memorable of which is probably Psycho, which starts as an entirely different movie where your focus is this girl has embezzled money from the bank she works at, and she's trying to decide whether to run away with it, to meet with her boyfriend, or return it before anyone notices that she's stolen it. And she stops at this motel to sleep on it in the middle of nowhere, and the guy who runs the motel murders her because he's out of his mind. And it's like, wow.
Spoiler alert.
Yes, yes. Well, the movie's called Psycho, Dave. You know, it's like, I think by now, after all these years, people have kind of gotten the clue. But the point being that for its time, 1960, to have that, the first half hour be what you think is a standard Hitchcock, you know, caper movie, and then it turns into something completely unlike anything he had ever done, was a huge surprise to the audience and extremely disturbing, and in the way that Hitchcock had intended. And so that was where you don't even meet who's going to actually be sort of the protagonist slash antagonist until a half hour into the movie.
Yeah, I mean, the motivation is the hook for your audience, so you want to do it as early as possible.
Yes.
But there's some wonderful exceptions. Did you see Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yes.
Do you remember? It's like, we know they're just trying to get away. They know that you're told they want the treasure, but remember the
spoil the
scene?
ending. Oh yeah.
No, remember
yeah,
the scene
good.
around the fire?
Mm-hmm. Where they talk about what they want to do with the
Yes.
money when they get it.
What their dream will be, and that really makes a big difference in the film.
Well, you start really caring about these people because they're not just cartoons. They're not just caricatures.
But you see the
And
picture of their lives, who they want to be special.
It's very important to see what the heart of the character is and how it connects to other people, or fails to. Taxi Driver is a great example of someone who deliberately isolates himself, and that's a spectacular film. You know, so yeah.
I have a great little story too. Would you like to hear it?
Depends on if it's good.
It's a good story. So the film was, Cameron Crowe was writing a new film, and he was very excited about it, and he thought that it would be good to have this agent who was like not a very good ethical person, and finally at the end of the film he has this big climax that he needs to get ethical and have ethical attitudes with his clients, and things will be better than the end. So James Brooks was the producer. He read it and he said, "See, this is a great story, but you got to put that at the beginning." I said, "What?" Yeah, he writes the mission statement at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So the first 6 pages of Jerry Maguire, he goes through the entire film, a journey where he is good. It turns out he's not. He has an epiphany. He decides to change his mind and go out into the world with this new attitude and gets fired in 6 minutes.
Wow.
So that's a good way to start a movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot
of good producer too.
Yeah. I mean, the real answer to your question is look at the movies that you love and study their structure, study how they work, what makes them work. And because you can really learn those tricks that way. And some films are so totally outside of the normal structure, like Citizen Kane, is very much a different kind of structure, and it really works. But
I will return shortly.
Bye.
I have dog here.
She has dog problems. Yeah, bye, Elaine. See ya. Okay.
Yes, thank you, and thank you again for Sunday.
Yay, thank you, Carol. My gosh, yay. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Dave?
Dave.
I'm sorry, Adam, pardon me. Elaine's distracting me. It's Elaine's fault.
All Elaine's fault.
Yes.
Yes, we have a question from Scott Baker.
Hi, Scott.
Who asks, what social problems, if any,
Mm-hmm.
do you think have not been effectively addressed in a sci-fi allegory?
Yes.
In other words, that you might like to address in your own work?
The one I'm addressing now very, very specifically is how older people are made invisible and relegated to stereotypes that are not accurate. The fact that older actors get the choice of either playing someone coming down with Alzheimer's or the funny grandpa or the funny grandma or someone getting cancer. Whereas the people I know who are over 60 are and up are extremely vital and extremely involved, very, very different from the stereotype. And so Sweet Haven, which Carol was talking about and David was talking about, is a new show I'm creating with Rockne O'Bannon in which everyone in the world under 60 dies, and the people 60 and above have to save the world when they can't reproduce. And it's a really fun, and it's got Bob Picardo and Gates McFadden and Veronica Cartwright and Carol and Mike Harney and Krista, Marta Kristen from Lost in Space, as you mentioned, and on and on. I mean, it's Barbara Bain, yes,
Smiley.
Judith Smiley, of course, and yes, and so it's me dealing with something. First of all, I often write things that have an element of issues I'm dealing with in my life, and one issue is as you get older, how do you stay vital? How do you stay relevant and creative and active and so forth? So so I thought it would be really fun to write those characters, and I wanted to give a really good role to Mike Harney because he's such a wonderful actor, and he's usually relegated to a supporting role rather than a lead. And I thought I would take him out for a spin beyond what I did with him in Space Command. So yeah, so that's one of them. I mean, there's tons and tons of social issues that as I become aware, the trick is to find the way to do it in science fiction that isn't just didactic, that isn't just about, okay, let's talk. This is a problem that Jordan Peele has. This is a mistake he's made with Twilight Zone, and many people have made this mistake, except for, of course, Rod Serling and his band of elves. They'll say, well, let's do our episode about domestic abuse, or let's do our episode about Trump. And that's not how you put together a story. That's not a story. That's a a screed. Yeah. And the trick is to find a story that has a profound meaning in the real world, but also is a really entertaining story. That's the trick of it. And so, for instance, we're going to be dealing with the notion of war and the evil of war as a thing very soon. That's Great Solar War. But we haven't finished that script yet. But that's a challenge. Elaine and I come from different angles on story. Elaine usually starts with theme, and then builds out her script and her storyline. I usually start with anything but theme. I might start with a character I want to write about. I might start with an actor that I want to hire. I might start with like a scene, a vision of a specific scene, or some really cool idea I have. This cool story idea, So those, but and then I'll come to theme ultimately, but I don't usually start with theme. So yeah, so there's that. So let's see. So Stephen, you're next on my screen. Go for it.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good.
I finished my script. I'm going to send it to you guys later today.
Cool.
And what else is going on with you guys?
A lot. When we get to my turn, I'll talk about all the stuff we're doing. But is there anything else you need, Stephen?
So basically, once you review it, we'll talk about what the next steps are. Once whoever reviews it is. Yeah,
and you can put it out to the table and so forth. But yeah. I mean, scripts are very hard to write well. It really is like a 100-page haiku. But yeah. But good for you in finishing. That's terrific. Anything else for now?
Nope.
Okay, yay! 3 cheers. Another Mr. Sci-Fi question then, Adam.
Let's see. Oh, we did that one. Yes. Great question from Glinzer.
Okay.
Who asked, for sci-fi TV and movies, how would you rate each decade from worst to best?
Great, you bet. I think the era from the 70s to the 90s was the great era of science fiction movies, because it's starting with probably Star Wars in 77, and then leading to Alien in 79, and then Blade Runner in 82, and so forth. I think the great era for science fiction TV, probably the 60s, because you had Twilight Zone and the original Outer Limits and Star Trek. They were all hugely revolutionary in their way, particularly Rod, particularly Twilight Zone. But it really science fiction really started to gain a major momentum in visual media in the 50s after World War II, because the 40s, that was about World War II. You didn't really have a lot of great science fiction films in the 40s. You had one great science fiction film in the 20s, that was Metropolis, and one great science fiction film in the 30s, which was Things to Come. But in the 50s, you got a plethora of great science fiction movies, where there was Forbidden Planet, or Day the Earth Stood Still, or This Island Earth was huge fun. There are many. And then you also got some really cool TV shows in the 50s, like Space Patrol, and Tales of Tomorrow was interesting. And there were a variety. And it really kind of got sort of really rolling in the 50s, and then escalated in the 60s into the 70s, into the all the way through the 90s. The problem with the modern era is that many science fiction TV shows just are kind of derivative and not really very interesting. And the movies often are either old hat or or are like superhero movies, and superhero movies are done with great skill, but they're not my favorite genre because the stakes don't mean anything. In Alien, the people die and they're dead. Whereas in a Superman movie or a Spider-Man movie, whatever happens to that version of Spider-Man, they'll be back as another actor, and we start, kind of starts over again. And so for me, there's a lack of consequences, because that whatever happens, and they could be put through like a meat grinder, literally. I mean, and come out as like ground round, and then the next movie they'd be back in their tights, wearing their underwear on the outside like Superman does, and all that stuff. So that's sort of my thought, to ramble a little bit. So let's see. I guess Nina, you're the next on my screen.
Hello.
Hi.
I heard that Sunday was awesome. I'm so happy you guys had a good time. I wish we could have watched. I was like, damn, I wish we could watch, but I knew we couldn't.
Yeah.
I accepted that. That's not easy. So I have a couple auditions coming up.
Good.
Settling in with, I'm in a town, don't know what I'm doing with myself, and didn't realize how out of touch I was. A little embarrassing. So I'm trying to learn. A friend of mine, I created an acting improv company in Hollywood with a friend. And one of the things he always told me was we always reminded each other of is to not weigh yourself down with your past accomplishments.
Yes.
Because you can't travel fast, and it gets in your way, and you stumble over. Oh, I was so good, a year ago. I suck now. So so I'm working on that one. Here, trying to understand how to reconnect in a city that got connected, but I'm just it's the same thing we're all going through.
Yeah.
So ambulance.
But you are referencing something that's important for actors, but also for writers, for every artist, is being present, being in the moment. And even in meetings when you're pitching, be there, be present. You'd be amazed when I was on the receiving end of pitches, how many times I would ask a question and the writer would answer a different question because he wasn't present. He was in his head about the past, about the future, about everywhere but here. And being present, being in the moment. I mean, really, really terrific actors. They rehearse and they rehearse and they rehearse, and they do all of their homework beforehand, simply so they can let go of it all and be in the moment as that person. And and it's spectacular to watch these people work, because it takes your breath away. I mean, Christina Moses was just phenomenal when I worked with her. She's now one of the leads in A Million Little Things on ABC, and she's also in Space Command now. But I first worked with her when she played Sulu's daughter in the episode that I co-wrote and directed some years ago, the Star Trek episode. But yeah. But go ahead, please.
And that's sometimes you have conversations like we're having right now with everybody, and I really appreciate you reverberating it back in another fashion, so that I can also hear that it's not just about not beating myself up or not stumbling over my past and not accepting where I am now. It's about just being present and enjoying the present.
Yes. And doing the work. Because again, if you aren't present, you're not doing the job. Yeah. And
especially the performers and that.
Yes.
Any job you're doing, you're not in it. You're not there.
Yes.
So a friend of mine, and we bunch of us started the neighborhood Chaos West out there.
Mm-hmm.
And Anthony has his own. He's amazing. He's an amazing actor, and I'm sure a fabulous teacher, because he got the technique so well. It's so part of him. And because of the pandemic, I've been able to reconnect with people in this fashion. And in that way, had I been isolated by myself, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at. So it's a way to appreciate, okay, but that was then and this is now, and this is good, because I don't know if I would have reconnected as well if I had just been left to my own devices. there's no excuse. My computer's here. I have an electric storm, and wind blowing, but I've got, you know what I mean? The computer's
Yes.
here. Screw it. Show
Yes.
up. And so printed out my slides. I've already been working on my audition just to know that I can show up and feel comfortable in my own skin again.
Good. That's good. And I mean, it's very important for all of us to be kind to ourselves. You know, to be gentle with ourselves. And that doesn't mean that we don't work hard. We do. You have to. But it means that you're forgiving of your humanity. You know, and that's for many of us, it's very, very hard to do that. But you know, it's important. So anything else, Nina?
Progress. And
Yeah.
I need nothing from you all except I'm happy to see all your faces.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yay! A few cheers. So, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes, we have a really great question from Gylinda B.
Hi.
And she asks, if you were given the opportunity to put something to the time capsule that's going to Mars right now,
Wow.
what do you think you would have put in it?
Me? I don't know. You know, it's like, you know, that's an interesting question because it depends on what Mars's future ends up being. If we end up colonizing Mars, that's one thing. If it's just going to like be there and man will be temporarily there like we were on the moon 50 years ago and then gone, it's like sort of pointless. I mean, it's interesting when the moon landing happened, you know, they put up the plaque that says we came in peace for all mankind. And so at the point, there was a point that right then when a magazine asked a number of famous people what they think the sign on the moon should have read from the moon landing to tell like alien life about humanity. And I.F. Stone, who was a very famous liberal journalist at the time, said that the sign should say "run." You know, so that was good. And but yeah, so that's. But in terms of a time capsule, I mean, you know, I'd want to put things in like The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. You know, Robinson Crusoe on Mars, which is one of my favorite movies. You know, it's just a bunch of stuff. But you know, it's. I'm just very eager for men to land on Mars because it'll be so much easier to look for signs of life, whether currently alive or ancient life. But you know, I want people poking around up there and you know saying, "Oh, look at that rock! That looks interesting. Let's walk over there," you know, and so forth. But
that's non-gender specific men, right?
Yes. The self-identifying or whatever. But yes. I think, you know, no, I mean, you know, that's, yeah, absolutely. So let's see who's Judith, you're next on my screen. Go for it. Whoops. Are you putting it? Are you taking, you have to unmute.
She's got to juggle the dog first.
Okay, there we go.
Hi, guys. Good to see you all again.
Hi.
I had the privilege and the fun to do a wonderful reading on Sunday with some of the people that I'd worked with before on the radio play, which was really terrific. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Mark and Elaine.
Great.
I have a monster who is eating me alive. He's a chewer. He's growing by leaps and bounds. I finished my audiobook demo. It's ready to record now.
Great.
So I will go into the studio in April after I get his vaccine and my vaccine particularly.
Cool.
So I'm going to make an appointment for the first week in April and finish that up.
Great.
And start working on the animation demo.
Cool.
There's a lot of bread and butter work out there. It's time I started working again. It's
Great.
time I kick myself in the ass, you know.
Sure.
And I've been working on the outline, the outline of the film that I'm doing about the detective agency. One's alive, one's dead. And I hope to register that next week as well, because every time I say something about it, everybody says, "Oh, that's a great idea," and I don't want them to take it. So I have to make sure that the outline is really tight, so I can just move it into a script.
Good.
I'm working on some of the other stuff. You guys inspire me, you know.
Thanks.
You do. And I've also been thinking about Invasion of the Booby Snatchers, which is about talkers. And slowly, like you do.
Yes.
2 hours here, 2 hours there. Although I will say that Zicree does interfere a lot.
That's the name of the dog, by the way, just to let everyone. Yeah.
Attention.
Well, great.
How long have you had?
He gets upset if I'm on the phone or if I'm on the computer. Sort of like my ex-husband. A month yesterday.
A month yesterday. Mazel tov. That's great. So anything else?
He knows his name. He knows sit.
Yes.
He knows where the treats are.
Great. That's great.
He's a pretty smart guy.
Huh. Cool.
I just wish he'd stop biting, but he's doing very well. He's
Good.
almost potty trained.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good.
Great.
It's all good.
Well, great. Well, yay. 3 cheers. Excellent.
Thank you.
You bet.
And thank you for Sunday.
Of course. It was great fun. So, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Actually, I think we are caught up for now.
Really?
But we can take this time to. Oh, wait. We have this just in from Glinzer. He says, been watching the Karloff Anthology series Thriller on DVD.
Cool.
It feels similar to The Twilight Zone. Thoughts?
Yes. My friend Doug Hayes, who was one of the great directors of The Twilight Zone, he did Eye of the Beholder and The After Hours and The Howling Man and The Invaders. He was a director and a writer on Boris Karloff's Thriller, and at that time, Doug told me this story. It was great. He was very well known for fixing shows that weren't working, and at one point early in the first season, they called him in on Thriller because it was failing, and all of their episodes were things like bank heists and things like that, and he sat them down. He said, well, the problem you have is that if this was Richard Widmark's Thriller, then you would have crime dramas. But this is Boris Karloff's Thriller, and you need like creepy houses with clanking chains and lightning across the sky and things that go bump in the night. And they said yes. And so he wrote and directed one of those that set the tone for the show. And from then on, it was a hit. And so he did a number of episodes, including one called The Hungry Glass, which with William Shatner. That's really fun. And he was a good friend of Shatner's, and it was very funny because he would often ask Shatner to star in pilots for him, and Shatner would always turn it down. And then he heard that Shatner was doing this pilot over at Desilu called Star Trek, and he called Shatner and he said, "What's the deal with this?" And Shatner said, "Oh, well, this will never last." So that was very fun. And but Doug was an amazing guy, and Thriller was a good show. I think Twilight Zone is a better show, but it has a lot of fun things. And one of the cool things about television back then, there were only 3 major networks, and you saw all the same actors on all the shows. So you might see, William Shatner on Twilight Zone, and then all of a sudden he'd be on, Thriller or whatever, or Outer Limits. Or you might see, Eddie Albert on, doing 1984 on Alcoa Presents, and then a few years later he's doing Green Acres. So it's almost like these people were your family because they were so familiar to you because they were on all the TV shows, and that was really interesting and really fun about television back then. So let's see. Next, we've got Bonnie Janowski. Go for it, Bonnie.
Hello.
Hi.
So
Thanks.
lots of stuff happening, and I'm working on themes for 2 new ventures that people are starting. They're both kind of mindful awareness type thing. One is, and the other is kind of a global type, also kind of spiritual bent, and I'm writing for their videos and themes and all kinds of stuff like that, and working on a lot of different things. This Sunday at 4:00, there's a concert, and I'll put the flyer in the chat, and it's all original piano music by myself and other composers from the National Association of Composers USA. So it's called Piano Splash. This particular concert was broadcast in July, and now it's being broadcast as part of the Presidio concerts that take place in San Francisco. So, of course, our music we all recorded on our own, but all of the composers will be online and saying a few words about our pieces and performance and things like that. So that's pretty cool. And just working on all kinds of stuff. I know I'm forgetting other things, but anyway, let's do. Oh yes, now someone has me working on a piece. They wrote an original piece, but I'm taking it, orchestrating it, and it looks like it will be performed by the LA Chamber Orchestra.
Wow.
So there's that, and just I don't know, all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
All these different things. So if anybody needs music, Jim will let me know. I'll put the concert flyer in the chat, and I'll put the website and all the good stuff. Oh yeah. So they were talking about their dogs. Joel and I about 2-3 weeks ago today we adopted a kitty.
Yay! Cheers.
Yeah. So she's I guess she's sleeping in the other room now, but she's like 13 years old. We rescued her, and she has some health issues. But,
Yeah, they all do.
but yeah, she's really neat. So
Great.
20 pounds. Huge.
Wow. Jesus. Well, that's.
Anyway, it's cool.
Yeah,
so,
and 20.
Bonnie, I've been working on my weekends, spare time on our friend Mike Lopez's short film, and it's been challenging.
Good job.
But I'm over halfway through, so sooner than later we'll get you something to look at. Would you like to see the work? If he doesn't mind, would you like to see the work in progress?
Sure, that'd be great. Okay. Yeah, and also actually work is resuming on another film. We're going back to writing all the dance numbers for a film musical.
Great.
So that's starting to get going.
Okay.
So pre-production on that. We've written a lot of songs, but we're now gonna add, and there's some dance numbers to write. So yeah, that'll be great. Absolutely.
Great.
Yay.
Yay, Bonnie. 3 cheers. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Let's take a look. Yes, that's right. We have another Scott Baker question.
Great.
He asks, I don't remember what your answer was to this. What do you do to prepare for writing a new piece of writing? Meditate, read someone else's work you like, jog?
No. I'm constantly reading a lot of books simultaneously, a number of books. And I usually read I read science fiction novels, I read histories, a lot of history, and books on science, etc., and literature as well. And so I'm always doing that, and I'm always kind of percolating on stuff. And there are some stories that I've come up with like maybe 20 years ago, still kind of, haven't gotten around to writing them, but I know they're cool. And I just start whenever I start. It's like I don't really need much to prime the pump. You just start kind of chewing on stuff. You think about it, and then you just kind of start making notes, and then you take a run at it. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't always gel. I mean, sometimes you'll write a script and it's like, well, I just can't quite get this to work, and so you'll put it aside, and maybe later you'll figure it out. I mean, the main thing is to not be too precious with what you've written, to be willing to have your wife say, "Oh, this sucks," and then okay, let's try to make it better. But but Elaine and I are always working on multiple projects. I mean, that's what we learned in TV. Multitasking is second nature to us. So right now we're working on many things simultaneously, and that's just how we do things, and we like it that way. Because one thing I've learned from my mentors is that when you have multiple projects, if one of them takes a major blow, it doesn't dismantle you, because you're working on a number of things, and so no one thing can really stop you. And that's I think that's a healthy way to be in one's creative life. So yeah, that's what I would say to that. So let's see, Marka Gushewitz. It's like Marka Gushewitz, the Paderewski of the keyboard. There you go. Go for it.
Before I get started, you get a lot of Space Command questions. I have a question for Elaine.
Yes.
Week after week after week for like 5 years now, I've been listening to Mark talk about his love of science fiction and everything science fiction and all that. And I'm really curious if Elaine is, if that's her genre of choice too, or if she just kind of goes in a totally different direction.
Well, I enjoy science fiction, but no, I'm more like a Tennessee Williams, Chayefsky, John Steinbeck kind of guy.
Yeah,
you know, I really like the character-driven
Eugene O'Neill.
You know, where you really get a sense of who people are and what they're up to. When I was a kid, like a lot of children, I was feeling very lonely and very isolated, and I felt like a space alien. That I just didn't connect. I didn't belong in the world.
Yeah.
And also, you know, you're usually not that articulate as a child.
Right.
And so what changed the way I viewed the world were these writers. Because when
Dostoevsky.
Dostoevsky, because I read those books, and it wasn't just that I really cued into what they were saying and they saw the world through my eyes, but the books that I loved were loved over generations, over cultures, you know, for decades. And I thought, well, my perception of myself, given the fact that these books that move me have moved so many people over so many countries, so many cultures, over so many years, that I must be misperceiving. It must be a breakdown of a bridge that actually does exist that I'm not seeing.
Yes.
And because that was the thing that sort of anchored me to the world and maybe helped me go on, those are still the stories and the kind of writing that I most value.
Yeah. So great. So go ahead.
I was just really curious because
you know,
we know everything about Mark and his love for science fiction, and I realized all these years I don't think I've ever really gotten to understand where you were coming from.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the problem is that, you know, you don't have conventions where people dress up as Steinbeck or, you know, something like that. We should.
So whenever I do a genre like science fiction, or I even got involved in this mafia script.
Yeah.
The same thing happens though. My focus, the thing that I most bring is the day-to-day problems of the characters, you know, within whatever genre.
Well, every story has to be a character-driven story for it to work. You have to, whether it's Sherlock Holmes or Mr. Spock or, you know, anybody, anything, you have to cue into the people. Otherwise, it's just crap. You know, it's just a story that you don't remember and that's not memorable. But go ahead, Mark. How are you doing?
Okay. I am doing okay. Today was kind of a strange day. But anyway, getting a little bit of work here and there as an editor. Mostly still kind of dead, but I've been moving forward on my website /podcast. Just going along, writing reviews. I just talked to the first person who's going to be on my podcast today, and he's actually been reaching out to a lot of his friends who are in the business to see if they would be interested in being on my podcast. So without my knowing about it, he's garnered some interest for some more guests for me. So
great.
Cool. And then I've just decided while Mark was just talking that it just feels like it's been coming up a lot recently. So I'm going to have to do it. And I think one of my first reviews on my website's going to have to be Robinson Crusoe on Mars.
Yes.
It's sitting on the shelf behind me, but you have now mentioned it multiple times over the last month. And it's like, this name just keeps coming back to me.
Yes, it's wonderful.
So the short film, zombie film is kind of moving slow, but we're looking at being finished in the next 2-3 weeks. So that's good. Like I said, the podcast / website's moving forward. And I'm going to be helping somebody out on a film shoot next week. So I'm just keeping myself busy. And I talked to Joe, email back and forth a number of times to Joe Doherty today about his being on the show. So things are moving forward. They're kind of exciting, and they're just basically all the same stuff I've been talking about week after week.
Cool.
Writing these reviews though, because they're so easy to finish, and the website, I'm feeling like for the first time since COVID took over that I'm accomplishing something.
Great. That's great.
It's kind of important to me. Generally, I'm working on other people's stuff, so I'm feeling good.
That's great. Well, and Mark, in terms of Robinson Crusoe on Mars, I don't know if I told you the story, but years ago, Elaine and I belonged to a club called the Rubber Ears Club. It was made up of Star Trek writers, both novelists and TV writers. And So Barbara Hambly and Mel Gilden and Michael Reeves and Vonda McIntyre and so forth were members, Garfield and Judith Reeve Stevens, and we get together once a month. So one time I arranged to show, I had a laser disc of Robinson Crusoe on Mars at that point, and I no one else in the club had seen it, so we had a screening of it at Barbara's house, and as a surprise, I arranged to have the two lead actors from the movie show up at her place, and that was so much fun, so much fun. Paul Mantell, who starred in that movie, was for a period of time a member of the table early on, and he's wonderful in the film, so I highly recommend it. Yeah, it's a great film. So
well, Robinson Crusoe on Mars for me was, I was in the Laserdisc store because I saw it released this first time. I was in the rental place. And it's just like Robinson Crusoe on Mars. And my first instinct for it was really, like, Gilligan's Island when it went on that planet. So it was really stupid.
Yes.
And then I put it in and it really blew me away.
Yeah.
And this was like, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So now you've mentioned it. So now I'm going to, it may not be in the first, when the website's released, but within a month after that.
Cool.
I've already got the list. I'm definitely going to do Robinson Crusoe on Mars. If anybody here hasn't seen it, they should really check it out.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thanks. Yay. 3 cheers. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
There we go. Yes. Another question from Glinzer.
Hi.
Who asks, what is your favorite item of memorabilia?
That's an interesting question. What would be my favorite?
I think it's a series of favorite things.
There's a bunch of stuff, yeah.
I think it has, he loves his objects, but because of connections. But the thing that he really seems to love are signatures and books of writers who have.
Yeah, there's just so many things. That's the challenge. I mean, what do I love? I mean, my gosh, I just sent my friend Ian McCaig. I asked Ian what was his favorite Ray Bradbury book, and he loved Something Wicked This Way Comes. So I sent him a first edition of the book signed by Ray Bradbury to me that I had just on the shelf, and Ian was just totally blown away by that, which is great. I have many things. I've got a spacesuit from Aliens, which is one of my favorite movies. I've got a signed Blade Runner poster from Ridley Scott, and I just bought some original storyboards drawn by Ridley Scott from Prometheus. There's all sorts of stuff that I love. I mean, it goes on and on. I mean, these spacesuits that are over here, from Outland and Star Trek and so forth, and Twilight Zone, have meaning to me. I could probably go on all night with all the things that I value. The first edition of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the first American edition. Elaine found that in a bookstore in New England for $25 years ago. The book's worth a few grand, but it's and she also found the first edition of Journey to the Center of the Earth, first American edition of that, under that same. It was in a box under a shelf at this bookstore in New England, and they were both $25 each. Phenomenal. And so I just all that kind of stuff. I have books that I love, movies that I love, props that I own that are very meaningful to me. Usually the props that are meaningful to me are not from necessarily things that I wrote, but just usually they're from movies and TV shows that were meaningful to me, that made me who I am. Like having Ray Bradbury sign copies of his book, because I'd go over to Ray's house once a month for over 10 years, and I'd always bring a book of his for him to sign to me. And that was very, very. He was renowned for doing signings, and of course he was in his 90s at that point, or late 80s. And he made a joke. He said, I've heard that somewhere there's one copy of one of my books that I haven't signed, and I understand that's worth quite a lot. So that was great. That was great. But and then so that's some of it. But I mean, ask me again later, and I'll come up with other stuff that means a lot to me. So, but great. So now we go to Dale Turner. You're I don't know, Dale, you're up. It's your turn. So go for it.
So I was trying to read all the nice notes in the chat, and because I type 45 words a week, sorry, I can't get back to everybody. Thank you for your thoughts. I was just, Nina, I appreciate your kind words about my film. However, it's My Name is Lamar, not My Name is Earl. That's a TV show.
Yes. Yeah.
But good company indeed. I love My Name is Earl. Nothing much. I spent pretty much most of the day doing something I've been putting off for like 7 years, which is spring cleaning. And I cleared out a storage unit in my carport.
Great.
And I'm surprised I can lift my arms. Because I got rid of a Christmas tree from 15 years ago.
Wow.
Wow.
The fake ones I haven't put up in 15 years, and all the ornaments, and so So I'm happy about that. As far as acting goes, I did a couple of I think I don't want to say I mastered self-tape, but I don't go kicking and scratching like I used to when the premise of it came up. And even we were doing this before the pandemic. And I would say, no, absolutely not. I didn't want to do it. I'm old school. Bring me into the office and so I can to the casting director.
Yeah.
Now it's fairly easy. I can set up in like 8 minutes. I know how to edit. Thank you, David. And so I did a couple of yesterday, and I'm quite proud of it. So I'm letting my face out there again. I'm starting to pick up work and TV shows and whatnot. So
great.
I'm back.
Great.
And thank you guys for letting me read the other day. That was really, really cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. That was really an amazing event, wasn't it? So what a terrific cast. My God, really, really fun. So is there anything you need, Dale? Anything we can do to be of help?
I wish you were here cleaning out my thing. I'm already finished.
Well, that's
actually,
they only live a few blocks away, Dale.
Say it again.
They only live a few blocks away, you know.
I did not know that.
Well, there you go.
But, that's funny. That's an odd coincidence because I was sort of hoping you'd come over here and help us.
Help us clean stuff out. Yes.
I could do that. I've got muscles now.
Wow, look at that. That's impressive. That's
that
impressive. Well, one thing that's fun is I'm going through my books and putting them in order and all of that stuff. And it's great when I find something that I haven't seen for a long time where I know I own it, but I don't know where it is. And I just came across this, which is First on Mars, which is this really cool paperback book. I'll show it to the Mr. Sci-Fi fans. It's really great. I think the cover may be by Ed Emshwiller. But it was, the interesting thing is I found out that this is actually originally published in England as No Man Friday. And it's basically Robinson Crusoe on Mars, but it was not the inspiration for the movie of the same name. Totally unrelated. By the way, something to Marco Gushwitz. Ib Melchior, who came up with that idea and wrote that script, I met him. He was a really interesting guy, and he did a lot of very interesting science fiction movies. So you might want to look up his bio, his background, because he'd be worth talking about on your podcast too. So, but Dale, anything else for now?
No, I think just feeling like my feet are on the ground again. I've had so much to deal with over the last couple of years with my family and funerals and COVIDs and funerals. And so I think I'm out of the woods finally, and I feel like a human being again.
Good.
So it's good to see smiling faces.
Great. Well, great to have you here.
Looking back at me.
Yeah, yes. Three cheers. Yay. And Dale's a wonderful actor, and I can recommend him wholeheartedly, as I can Carol and Judith. And of course, David Bartlett is great in scenes with little dogs licking him, which is, if you want to see him in such a scene, watch the Space Command episode Ripple Effect, which is on Mr. Sci-Fi, and he turns in he's the Olivier of actors in dog scenes. So
I think you just gave me the title of my autobiography, Little Dogs Licking Me.
Yes. And yep. There's a story I'll tell you later. I won't tell it among mixed company, but I'll tell you later about a true story about a man and his cat, which is, I'll tell you about it, and how he got a concussion as a result. So, okay. So, it's all right. I'll tell the story. Here's the story. A guy, I heard this on the news. It's a true story. A guy was in bed naked with his wife, and there was a dripping pipe. And so he went under the sink to tighten the thing so the pipe wouldn't be dripping. And he was naked. But he was bending over under the sink. And so the cat saw these two round objects hanging there and went with his claws, went like this. And the guy brought his head up and hit the pipe with his head and knocked himself out, and they had to call, emergency. And when he got to the emergency room, they said, "How did you get this injury?" And he told them the story. And so therein hangs the tale. So literally. And so there you go. So on that note,
and they kicked him out of the ER, right? Get out of here.
No, but I have other stories of the ER that are equally amusing, but I won't go into them right now. So, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes. We have our next question is from El Johnarino, who says, "How do you feel about posting on Mr. Sci-Fi a day of your life, shooting Space Command, writing, doing Zicree business?" I think he's essentially describing like a mini documentary.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. When I was in art school at UCLA many years ago, I did a number of student films, and one of the films I did was I had a camera, like a Super 8 camera, I think it was, with a cable release where I could shoot a frame at a time, and I went through my entire day clicking frames. And at the end of the day, you had a first-person viewpoint at super speed of my entire day. Everyone I talked to, everyone I interacted with, everything I did, from when I woke up to when I went to sleep. And it was really fun, really, because it was all in the space of about a minute. And that was, and one could go through that and just watch it frame by frame and see my entire day. And so that was really, really fun. Though my thumb, by the end of the day, my thumb was so sore and tired from clicking thousands of frames. But yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, I think my day is certainly interesting to me. But yeah, sure. Any given day would have many different things we're doing in it. It will be writing. It will be working with Dave Edison on the edit, working with VFX people, working with David Bartlett, with you, Adam, and just juggling projects, working on the new book, all that stuff. So yeah, sure. That's a fun idea. It's a fun idea. So let's see. So now it's Elaine. Wonderful Elaine. Yay, Elaine.
Okay, first, because I was out with my dogs, I missed something critical, which was, do you have your dog with you, Judith?
She does. She does.
I miss seeing Zicree. So.
Well, that's Zicree. We can't hear you. You're muted.
So is
there you go.
He is at the moment tearing my broom apart. I have to buy a new broom.
Oh, good.
Zicree,
That's so weird.
Come here, sweetheart. Come here. Come here. Zicree.
How do you feel about that name being used?
It's odd. It's definitely odd, particularly when she says Zicree crapped on my floor.
Uncle. Come here.
Yeah.
Come here.
How about just Zicky?
No, it's Zicree is the name. So there we go.
Ziggy is too close to Ziggy.
He has grown unbelievably.
Look at that.
Oh my God.
There he is. Uh-oh, look out.
Zicree house trained.
There he is. Look at that.
Oh, wow.
There he's big.
He's big, my gosh.
Dog shot. Oh, dog shot. Dog shot. Yeah, what a good dog he is.
Sweetie, wow.
He knows his name.
Uh-huh.
He knows sit.
Not the
He
dog.
almost knows stay.
Uh-huh.
He almost knows he can't get it with the treat. He almost knows leave it, and he's getting really far advanced in his potty training, which is hard because I can't take him out yet until he has all his vaccines.
Just
he's so smart.
sounds
and
like
he knows where the treats are, and he knows how to outwit me to get them.
That's great.
That's
Congratulations.
great. Yeah.
So what about you, Elaine?
Well,
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Just talking to Elaine. That's fine.
Yeah, well,
go for it.
Happy to have restaurants open again, and happy that I have to pay for my auto renewal, and it's the first time I can remember in forever that I don't have to do a smog check. So it's been a very good day.
Yeah.
So just plugging along on multiple projects. I just heard back from Masniano, my DP, about his Mafia project, which they're about to shoot the trailer on.
Well, the pilot.
The pilot.
Not the trailer.
They're about to shoot the pilot on, and I had a lot to do with the rewrites on that.
Yeah.
And so, if they end up shooting in Italy the way they're talking about, not for the pilot, then Mark and I may end up having a very good time. Yeah. So outside of that, just searching out producers to help me find the money for voiceless. I started to gather more actors, and that's about it for me.
Okay,
plugging away,
yay!
yeah.
3 cheers, Elaine. So now, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes, we have our next question and final question
Yes.
of the night. There's lots of different ones. Ooh, here's one.
Okay.
That's a question from Don Rose.
Okay, hi, Don.
And he asks, what is your favorite all-time Harlon Ellison story or anecdote?
Favorite Harlon Ellison story would be City on the Edge of Forever. I just thought it was superlative. I also love the work he did on Outer Limits, Demon with a Glass Hand, and Soldier. And I've read a ton of his stuff. You know, A Boy and His Dog is a really great story novella. My favorite Harlon Ellison story. Well, Harlan was, you know, quite a character. And the last thing he ever said to me was, there was an event at the Ray Bradbury Library in Cheviot Hills after Ray's death with George Clayton Johnson and Harlan memorializing Ray. And I stood up at one point and talked about Ray and why he meant a lot to all of us. And Harlan seemed to really be moved by what I had to say. And he said, as I was heading out, he said, "Good to see you, Mark." And that was the last thing he ever said to me. He had a stroke not long after and died a bit after that. But one time I called Harlan and I said, I just realized I've been making my bucket list, and something that's on my bucket list, and I really would love to see your house. You know, Alice in Wonderland was filled with all these wonderful things, you know, and Harlan said, okay, well, I'll tell you what. When you know you're going to die, call me and I'll give you a tour. And his wife, Susan, from the back, I heard her go, Harlan. so that was that. I think that really encapsulates Harlan, and you know, so I think that's probably my favorite story.
Can I quickly tell you my Harlan Ellison story?
Sure.
My ex-husband and I used to read the magazine of fantasy and science fiction religiously.
Cool.
So Harlan Ellison, I figured it was this big Norwegian guy, you know, Harlan Ellison, you know, and then I saw him on a talk show and he said to someone, good gesund. So I fell out. Fast forward, I did was the AD with when he played the White Rabbit on a Stefan show. And I walked into the green room and I told him that story. I said, I'm so honored to meet you. And he looked at me very intently and he said, you realize we're the only three here. Being the only two Jews.
Yes, that's funny. That's very funny. But he was a mixture of many qualities. I also always used to joke that Harlan burnt his bridges while he was on them. And you know, so, and I think that's really accurate. But he was an amazing man, unique, one of a kind, like so many of the great science fiction writers I've known. And I'm very glad that I got to know him. And you know, it was and one other piece of trivia: if you go to the Harlan Ellison website, the portrait of Harlan that's on his website, I drew when I was a teenager. So that's kind of fun. So okay, so let's see. I guess it's me. Wonderful me.
From you, yeah.
Okay. Well. Many things are happening. Space Command, we're finishing the 2nd hour with visual effects. We're getting ready to shoot the 4th hour with, you know, the alien spaceship, all that stuff, building the alien creatures. We're doing the Showrunners Network, where I'm creating 6 shows with 6 major showrunners, among them Rockne O'Bannon, who created Farscape, Mark Fergus and his partner, who created The Expanse, Joe Dougherty, who was executive producer on Pretty Little Liars and won an Emmy for 30-something. And so we did a table read of the show that Rock and I are creating, the script that Elaine and I wrote, the pilot of Sweet Haven, where everyone in the world under 60 dies and people 60 and above have to figure out how to save the world. And we've mentioned earlier the cast, which was Dale and Judith and Carol and all these heroes of ours from shows we grew up watching, you know, like Lost in Space and Mission Impossible, you know, with Barbara Bain and on, Bob Picardo and, you know, Marta Kristen and Veronica Cartwright and, you know, phenomenal. I mean, these are spectacular actors and people, and it was a thrill. So in 2 weeks, we're going to do another table read, and that one will be available to the public. So, so we're going to be rewriting the script as per the notes we got on that first reading, able to share that with people. And $36 million to shoot all 6 2-hour background. The pitch deck. By tomorrow, we should have the pitch deck done, and our venture capital person is meeting with people in New York, investors, and the initial buy-in is $5 million. So these are going to be people with deep pockets, and we'll see if it works. But either way, we're gonna shoot Sweet Haven, and we're gonna do Rod Serling's After Twilight, which is a new Rod Serling show, and just tons of stuff. It's gonna be really super fun, and I'm also finishing the book Greenlighting Yourself, which is about how to, not wait for other people to pick you, but to make stuff happen yourself. And I'm over 2/3 of the way done with that book. So in the next couple months, I'll have it done. And it's already sold to Silman James, and they'll be putting it out as soon as I finish it. And but it's coming along really, really well. And that's about it, I think. So thanks, guys. There's one of our 2 dogs, and it's not named Zicree. So this is Rudy, huh? Good dog. So great. Yes.
Name Zicree.
Yes, last name Zicree. Yes, Dale, did you have something to add?
Yeah, and I forgot because I don't like to talk about what I do. I just completed, we did voice recordings for the Antaeus Theater Company. They do a thing called the Zip Code Plays.
Oh, cool.
This is year 2, and I was fortunate enough for them to ask me to join them. My piece is called Pacoima, Gold or Shine. And it's very, I think you guys would dig it, because to me, it reminds me of a Twilight Zone sort of situation. So they're going to begin airing, I believe, sometime in May. They're going through editing and sound effects and whatnot. But I will definitely let everybody know when you can come and tune in and listen to this old prospector do what he needs to do to get it done.
That's cool. And you reminded me of one other thing that I can add, which is a really cool thing that happened this week. My favorite spacesuit, I collect spacesuits from different movies and TV shows, and my favorite spacesuit of all is Alien. The design in Alien. It was designed by Mobius, Jean Giraud, a very famous French artist, and it's great. It's just spectacular. And so 2 years ago, there's a high school in New Jersey that did Alien as their high school play, and they built from scratch the Alien costume. They built the 15-foot-long space jockey, and they built the spacesuits. And I flew there that day to advise and mentor the students. And Sigourney Weaver showed up as a surprise before the opening of the play and hung out with the students, and it was an amazing evening. And I got to be very friendly with Steve Defendini, the art teacher who supervised this. And for several years, I've been asking if I might have one of the spacesuits. And he finally has gotten back to the school, and he's going to be sending me a couple of the spacesuits from Alien that they built for that production. So it's going to be really cool. And I'm really thrilled about that. So that's going to be super neat. So maybe I'll have Veronica Cartwright autograph one of the helmets. I think that would probably be an extremely good idea. But that's about it for now. So thank you guys. Another great evening, and watch this space. And we'll be here next Thursday as we always are. And thanks guys for everything. Great to see everyone as always. So you take care. Bye guys. And bye, Mr. Sci-Fi fans. Yay. See you next time.